As the title says, in the next about 1 hour, we will introduce contemporary examples of protest lyrics from India and beyond. This presentation is the result of a seminar in which we dealt with ways of mediating solidarity in protest movements, and a deeper engagement with the language of protest poetry in the advanced Hindi class of Monika Freier, who will also say a few words towards the end of this presentation. Now I will start sharing my screen. So we understand poetry as knowledge production. And to quote Christine Pliss, the knowledge communicated through poetry is an emotion and experience, compelling the reader to devise a different way of being in and thinking about the world. Poetry can transcend language and its original context and is often easily adaptable to other contexts. One of our contributions today will talk about how protest songs travel across the world and across political movements. Resistance poetry has a very long tradition in South Asia, especially but not exclusively in the form of Urdu poetic traditions dating back to the Mughal Empire and even beyond that. Poetry in South Asia is usually performative, either read aloud at public meetings or poetry festivals or sung in various genres. We will hear some of these as examples later. Thus, it is no surprise that music as a means of resistance has a revival in contemporary India. Not only have marginalized groups like Dalits come to the forefront with a very self-assertive music scene, there is no protest in India without poetry and songs, one can say, and the reference to the Gandhian strategy of mass recital songs is quite obvious as well. Poetry and music can easily produce feelings of togetherness and communicate counter-narratives in at times subtle or indirect but very powerful ways. Besides the continuation of musical traditions as a means of protest, that include references to past traditions such as the already mentioned independence movement, or the vast repertoires of medieval mystic texts and Sufi poetry, we see also an incorporation of new global genres such as rap. Today, we will look at contemporary examples, whose common themes are the vision of a different India and resistance to the discriminatory policies of the current government in many ways. In the course of dealing with the recent protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act, short CAA, in 2019 and 20, Dhanya Gopal wrote in The Wire, cutting across various languages, genres, and styles, the songs of the movement have thus come to symbolize the hallowed notion of unity in diversity. In our first presentation, Lila, Miran, and Peggy Maeyer will introduce a recent poem written in the context of the protest movement against the CAA. This will then be followed by Ngoc who will talk about the adaptation of global protest songs, and one in particular, and then by Devina, Khurana, and Engler, who will introduce rap as a new genre in South Asian protest music.
Welcome, everyone. So thank you, Mrs. Titzmann, for your introductory words, and again, a warm welcome to everyone. As Mrs. Titzmann has already pointed out, India has witnessed a number of high-profile protest waves in recent years, with participants fighting either for or against topics of extreme relevance for the public. Calls for Azadi, freedom, and Loktantra, democracy, resonate throughout the country. Common to all protest movements is an almost incredibly high level of solidarity across India's diverse social and religious strata and age and gender groups, be they the most recent farmers' protests or the widespread protest against the Citizenship Amendment Act passed on December 11th, 2019, and the planned National Register of Citizens, NRC.
The Citizenship Amendment Act states that all persecuted religious minorities from the neighboring states of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, who are Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, Jains, or Parsis are entitled to Indian citizenship if they arrived in India before the end of 2014. However, this explicitly does not apply to Muslims or Tibetan refugees. This change in the law thus barely conceals the underlying intent of granting citizenship based on religious affiliation alone. Along with a plan to create a National Registry of Citizens, or NRC, the Indian government steps triggered nationwide mass protests against such regulation in general, but specifically also against the BJP-led government with its strongly biased agenda and obvious Hindu nationalist and anti-Muslim stance.
Today, we would like to introduce you to a poem by Varun Grover, an Indian stand-up comedian, writer, and poet. Against the background of the anti-NRC protests, Grover wrote and initially via Twitter published Hum KAGAZ nahi dikhayenge, our NRC papers we won't show, in December 2019, 10 days after the government of India enacted the CAA. Grover's poem quickly went viral on social media and was soon being recited at protest events, with the artist frequently appearing himself to perform it, both in its original version and in variations with new lines he introduced to an enthusiastic, cheering crowd. Hum KAGAZ nahi dikhayenge, our papers we won't show, soon echoed through India's cities like a battle cry.
These KAGAZ, or papers that people refuse to show, refer to the identity documentation that the Indian government requires in order to verify the citizenship status of individuals and to create the National Register of Citizens. By refusing to present these papers, people refuse the discrimination of those who are not included in the terms, which is an obvious proof of their solidarity. To give you a brief impression of the poem's lyrical power, we will now recite a few stanzas along with a rough English translation.
Hum KAGAZ nahi dikhayenge, tanasha aake jayenge.
Our papers we won't show. Dictators will come and go.
Tum aasoge se chaloge, tum zahar ki chai ubaloge, hum pyar ki shakkar ghol ke, isko gat 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 pi jayenge, hum KAGAZ nahi dikhayenge.
You blind us with tear gas. You poison our waters, that our love will sweeten, and we will drink it all in one go. Our papers we won't show. Ye deshi apna hasil hai, jaha Ram Prasad bhi bismil hai. Miti ko kaise baatoge, sabka hi khoon to shamil hai.
This nation is all we have, where Ram Prasad lives on in wounded memory. How will you divide the motherland that has blood and sacrifice of every Indian?
Varun Grover is now going to join us to recite a few new stanzas of his poem that we wanted to share with you. Well, thank you, Varun Grover, for joining us tonight. If not in person, then at least via video. It is amazing that we can transport such an atmosphere from such an event in India into our tonight's event. In a journey that is increasingly becoming typical in our times, Grover's poem traveled from electronic social media to the streets, and from the streets back to social media by way of innumerable posts, pictures, videos, stories, and above all, tweets. A simple tweet became a weapon, which gave force to people and movement to fight against inequalities.
The tweets. It's not just the Twitterati, but also the opposition leaders like Shashi Tharoor and Sitaram Yechuri, who both termed the poem an anthem against CAA and NRC.
Sitaram Yechuri, for example, wrote, "Thank you, Varun Grover, for giving India this brilliant anthem to resist this anti-people government and its draconian moves on CAA and NRC.
And Shashi Tharoor, I don't know who this brilliant poet is, but KAGAZ Dikhayenge is destined to be one of the most powerful anthems of the CAA NRC protests.
Well, KAGAZ Dikhayenge shows us that protest lyrics frequently cross artistic genres, and for this, substantially increase their reach and even sometimes find its way into song. Please enjoy the following impressive video. Well, so far for the lyrics and poems, our next contribution by Ngoc will show you that lyrics and poems not only travel across genres, they also travel the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy and Lila, for your input. And now I will go on with the part of how global protest songs are adapted. And in the beginning, I will come to the song Give Peace a Chance, originally by John Lennon. And then I will say a little bit about the global protest song, the adaptation of the global protest song by Ankur Tewari. About the song Give Peace a Chance is one of the most popular anthems of the peace movement of the 1970s. The song's specialness stems, among other things, from its unusual genesis, which was part of a peace action. Give Peace a Chance was singer-recorded by John Lennon and released in 1969. Became famous during the anti-war and protest movement of the 70s in reaction to the events in the Vietnam War. Give Peace a Chance quickly gained population among the anti-war movement and was seen as a critical song for the protest area. So now we saw a little bit of this song Give Peace a Chance and come to the historical background of the song. The period in which the song was written was marked by the protest movement of the younger generation against political, social, and cultural grievance, which included the conflict areas of racial segregation in Vietnam and student protest. So John Lennon, and just like his wife Yoko Ono, already took an important role in this peace movement before the publication of Give Peace a Chance, when students at the University of Berkeley protested openly at the time of the ban-in. John Lennon was in contact with the leaders by radio and urged them not to resort to violence under any circumstances and not to let themselves be provoked by the police officers. So, and now I will analyze a little bit the song. Give Peace a Chance consists of 4 verses plus a refrain. All we are saying is give peace a chance. And during this ban-in, it was spontaneously created. The song Give Peace a Chance is created, so it was created casually during the discussions and interviews, and it has a reduced effect. And this impression is reinforced by the simplicity of the harmony and the chord progression. Applause and cheer at the end of the song underline the upbeat mood the song is meant to convey. Letting the audience sing along joined the tradition of American and makes Give Peace a Chance a very democratic song. So the idea of the song is to motivate as many people as possible to carry the message of peace, which John Lennon wanted to convey with the song into the world. And the song is kept simple and conveys a positive mood. And in contrast to the previously broad discussions and opinions within the peace movement, John Lennon now called for cohesion under the essential demand to give peace a chance. This chance is the perception of one's own position, is characteristic of the realist turn of activists that took place at this time. And the essential success of the song, Give Peace a Chance, lies in its emotional simplicity, as shown by numerous examples of a wide variety of music styles. And 40 years later, the song is still used as a call for peace. Most recently, it was in 2007 on the album Instant Karma by Amnesty International Campaign to Save Darfur, which was a compilation of numerous songs from John Lennon's solo career intended to help victims of the Darfur conflict. And now we will see the video from Ankur Tewari. And I will say something about Ankur Tewari. He's an Indian director, composer, and musician, and a poet. He is popularly known for Gully Boy from 2019 and Slumdog Millionaire from 2008. And he's a man with multiple talents and much achievement on international level. So, and yeah, first we will see now the adaptation of this protest song. Here in this adaptation of the protest song, The Piece of Chance by Ankur Tewari, we see that it also has the same setting, and also that all the people in the background were wearing white clothes, so it was almost the same as the original song, The Piece of Chance, and it also conveys an uplifting mood. And yeah, so we see that the adaptation of global protest songs and different kinds of songs scenes and scene, and it's also one reason why famous songs are translated in different languages, and it's finding a huge resonance. And in this protest movement, we also see that there are also other protest movements, like the protest song Bella Ciao from Drum Bass, or We Shall Overcome, which is adapted to the Urdu poem Home Dikhayenge, We Shall See, from 1979, within the context of the Cox from Sia in Pakistan. So this in general was one song which I presented, and now I will give the stage to the next two presenters, Devina and Emily, and they will talk about rap as a genre.
So as Ngoc introduced, we're going to talk about rap in India, which is a fairly modern. Oh yes, exactly. Could you share the screen? Yeah. Well, it's a fairly new form of protest, and okay, so let's start. Where words are failing or deliberately being silenced, we can witness a surge of different forms of music emerging from all corners of India as means of creative and peaceful expression of protest. While many of these forms have a rich history and tradition of protest, rap has developed as a new but potent musical form of protest. Rap, frequently considered to be a Western format, is increasingly being employed by many artists, seeing substantial variety, reflecting the inflections of regional languages and local musical genres. To get a taste of what Indian, or in this case, Hindi rap sounds like, we would like to share another song with you. Some facts on the background of this song. First of all, it was released 2016 by composer Sharma and singing along Divine. What has been done is that a sample of the slogan Azadi has been taken, which originates from Kanhaiya Kumar and his supporters in 2016, who were holding an event to commemorate the 3rd death anniversary of Afzal Guru, a Kashmiri separatist convicted and hanged in 2013 for his alleged role in an attack on India's parliament in 2010. Afzal Guru's execution had long been controversial and divisive, with many claiming he was unjustly implicated for being from the disputed region of Kashmir, which India and its contentious neighbor Pakistan both claim and have fought 2 wars over since. Now coming to the actual slogan. The sample slogan specifically takes on the issue of hunger and racism that prevails in Indian society. According to Sharma, the song acts as a tribute to the then ongoing protest and the extent of which can be seen in the video. Another interesting fact is that the chanting of Azadi actually dates back to the independence struggle against the British Empire. Before we now go into more detail about how rap acts as a genre of protest, let us take you on a ride from the first Indian rapper to how the musical genre took hold of so many hearts. So rap, under the umbrella term of hip hop, traces its origins to the United States of America in the early 70s. In the 80s, conscious rap developed into a subgenre of hip hop as a call for political and social action and a particular contagious form of social activism. Since then, hip hop and rap have spread rapidly throughout the world and have taken their roots in India too. In the early 2000s, a non-Indian man provided Indian hip hop with the spark it needed. Bohemia, also known as Roger David, a Pakistani American rapper living in California, released his first album, which became a sensational hit in India. Influenced by him, a group of 5 individuals, Yo-Yo Honey Singh, Lil Golu, Bacha, Raftar, and Ika, together known as Mafia Mandir, came crashing into the Punjabi rap scene. You can see a picture of them in the left corner. The glory of this group was short-lived. Soon several members of the group parted ways in order to work independently and made their presence felt in Bollywood, earning up to 70 lakh rupees per song, which is equal to roughly 83,000 euros, so a lot of money. Then, coming to the next stage of Indian rap, inspired by legends like Nas, Naveed Sheikh, known as rapper Nazi, emerged from the streets of Mumbai, dropping his first track, Afat, Farzi for Disaster, in 2014. The track quickly went viral because of Nazi's versatility, impressive skills, and constructive storytelling. Another young rapper from the streets of Mumbai started making his presence felt. Vivian Fernandez, better known by stage name Devina, started gaining popularity with his single Ye Mera Bombay, translating to "This is my Mumbai," that he released on YouTube in 2013. In 2015, both these rappers collaborated for a song called Meri Gali Mein. Their lives soon turned to a film called Gully Boy that was released in 2019. The film's hook, a Dharavi rapper using music to collapse economic, social, and cultural barriers. Through the success of this movie and the consequent birth of Gully rap, many underground rappers gained a considerable amount of exposure. Now, having gained voice to point attention to political issues and to raise questions of caste, state, violence, poverty, unemployment, amongst others. What's most fascinating is how these musicians articulate protest on topical issues while combining Indian language and musical forms with Western performance formats, idioms, instruments, and singing styles. I'd like to conclude with 2 things. First, although we just showed examples of male rappers, there are a lot of female voices too. Raja Kumari is pretty popular and has a lot of contagious songs. And lastly, a quote by Mangala Damodaran in an article, Protest in Music. She writes, "Protest through music has seen historically the adoption of extremely diverse forms across cultures, and actual range of depth of this category of music is extensive because it is difficult to arrive at a simple set of principles that constitute the category of protest. What we understand from this is that protest music or lyrics, and in our case rap music, is able to communicate such depth and range of emotions because it is so versatile and ever adapting to new issues, because it does not underlie any fixed principles. Hence, it can reinvent itself anytime." So the next part will be moderated by Emily Engler, who will give an outtake on how rap can act as an incisive genre of protest in the present social political climate of India.
Yes. Hi. In the beginning, I will show you one video. The song or the video that you've just seen is from the song by Ngoc 47 and Shoals. And the name of the song was ANDOLAN, which means movement or also refers to a revolution. The song was born out of the protest movement against CIA and NRC, and sharply criticizes the course of the government and the government's plan of implementing new laws, which are found to be very discriminative against citizens on the basis of religion. It further talks about poor living conditions in today's India, and it mentions the problem of poverty and corruption, the situation of farmers in India, and also police brutality, including police brutality against student protesters. The video started with a speech by Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad. You can see him in the left corner of this slide. And he was a social and political activist and also a prominent figure within the independence movement in India, as well as independent India's first education minister. He especially worked for Hindu-Muslim unity and was one of the Muslim leaders who opposed the principle of a separate Muslim nation, and therefore opposed the partition of India, which is why it is relevant for this specific song. Throughout the track, there are also different other references to the independence movement, which is a very common phenomenon in Indian protest raps, that there are links to historical events and figures, especially of the independence movement, which creates a sort of common solidarity. I see this reference to a common past and history of struggle as an important repertoire of building solidarity. And other means of creating solidarity, which are also very common in Indian protest songs, are the creation of a dichotomy between we or us, the people, versus them, those in power or the oppressors. Also the creation of a shared hope for victory and hope for a better future. And also very important, the references to the shared values of the secular Indian constitution. So yeah, all these common means of creating solidarity could also be found in the song ANDOLAN, which I've shown you. And in the refrain, the artists say, "Hal to bure hai, kabhi dil hai Hindustani," which means that it is a bad situation, but the heart is still Indian, which again refers to the belief and the values of the secular Indian constitution. And furthermore, the line "Kabhi dil hai Hindustani" is taken from a kind of patriotic Bollywood song from the 50s, and hereby once more unites the listeners, as many are very familiar with the song and with this line, which is very catchy, of course. Yeah, in the pictures you can also see those references to like heroes of the independence movement, to the constitution and so on. The release or the track was released still in the beginning of the anti-CIA protest movement. And in this particular movement, different forms of art, of course, also including music and poetry, have played a very important role. Not only music and poetry, as you see, because like all of Delhi and also other Indian cities were painted during protests. And this art is a means of voicing dissent for the government, and it helps to keep up the spirit of the movement for so many months in a row. Yeah, and a lot of rap songs have also been released during the anti-CIA and NRC protests, dealing with the rising intolerance in the country and the effect of Hindu nationalist politics. Apart from those secularist messages, common themes that are found in Indian conscious rap include the effects of capitalism, such as privatization of education and other public sectors, corruption and nepotism, poverty, and also especially the huge inequalities that exist between rich and poor, as well as also casteism, extremism, and state violence. In recent times, a lot of rap songs have also come up, which were made by young Kashmiris who are very outspoken and inform the listeners about the situation in Kashmir and about the Kashmir conflict in general. And also in the farmers' movement, many more new protest rap songs have come up. Thank you for listening. And with this, I hand over to Dr. Monika Freier to give some concluding remarks.
I just want to be very, very brief, is to express my admiration for these kind of protest songs. And I would like to point out three main elements that I see and that we've also seen in the examples. I mean, one is the dialogic nature. So that these protest songs are not just a performance, they're actually an interaction with the audience. They get into dialogue. The second would be the referentiality. So all these songs, they are rooted in means of anti-violent protest. They are rooted in poetry performance, in recitations, in other ways of coming together and making music. And they're also, they have their roots in that, and they have their leaves and branches in the new forms of media, of medial protests that can spread these words and also connect different local protests and lead to collaborations between anti-CIA protesters and the LGBTQI+ community or other localized communities like Adivasi people. And then the third thing is the amazing creativity. So all these protest songs, they are continuously changed. They can be adapted to recent current events, and thus they are living on and becoming even more vital over time. Thank you very much for presenting these beautiful, wonderful songs and giving us some context.